Episode 74 of the Unscripted Company podcast, coming to you live on Rumble for a Tuesday night special, first of its kind, brought to you by our friends over at Applebee's Eatin' Good in the neighborhood. Hit them up late night, tell them Riley and JK from Unscripted Company sent you, tell them you saw us on the Tuesday night special, and they will hook you up with those half-price appetizers that they're so famous for. So thanks again to our friends over at Applebee's Eatin' Good in the hood. So this episode is a little bit out of the ordinary. We actually weren't available Sunday for our typical live stream or just recording of an episode because our good friends over at Applebee's actually sent us on location to a experimental Applebee's restaurant in Cancun, believe it or not. So they're trying to get us excited for these half-price appetizers. I'm really hopeful here in the near future we can actually do a live episode from that location. It's one of those hybrid restaurants. You know, it's got IHOP on one half and Applebee's on the other. But Cancun, man, it's a good time. It's a good time this past Sunday.
It was.
Well, to get us kicked off on this Tuesday night special, you got a question of the week for us, Riley?
I do. Would you rather be stuck in a loop of the weirdest 30 seconds of your life or be able to exit reality once a month, but only for the length of a vine?
Whoa. Okay. For me to process this accurately, can you repeat that question one more time?
So, would you rather be stuck in a loop of the weirdest 30 seconds of your life or be able to exit reality once a month, but only for the length of a vine? So like, you know, like the old vines that they used to have on the app and everything.
Yeah. I'll opt to exit reality once a month for the length of a vine rather than the most awkward loop over and over, because like you're going to be in a loop, like a perma loop, right?
Right.
And I think it could be interesting. Like I'm envisioning this vine length of an exit from reality could be very similar to what's the term, dimethyltryptamine. I'm gonna mispronounce it. DMT, basically.
Yeah.
I have never partaken myself in this. Probably never will. Terrifying concept.
Yeah.
I hear stories. I love reading about it. I love watching videos about it because it is extremely fascinating. But that's how I picture this exiting reality for a vine length of time once a month rather than continuously being locked in this most awkward loop. But let me ask you, what are your thoughts?
I'd probably do the same, honestly. I mean, I just feel like, you know, what reality, like, so we're exiting our reality, but what are we going to? That's the question.
Yeah, I'm picturing it's Clockwork Elves style. Have you ever gone down the rabbit hole? You don't have to disclose too much, but like, have you ever just like watched YouTube videos and stuff like from more of like an academic perspective of like the DMT realm and the DMT world and how? So this is very interesting. If you ever get bored, plenty of YouTube videos. Joe Rogan on some of his episodes, I've actually had some of the individuals who are experts, I guess, on this topic. There is a university. I might be misremembering. It's over in the UK. I think it's the University of Edinburgh, I believe.
Oh yeah, I remember because I didn't watch that full episode, but I remember that segment.
Yeah.
And
they are mapping the DMT world. They got some people that willingly volunteered and signed, I'm sure, a very long waiver. They basically have them on an IV drip of DMT to like have an extended stay. I think it's like minutes rather than, or like multitudes of minutes rather than just like a few minutes. Kind of like mapping out this world.
They are never going to recover from that.
I think that's why it's a very long waiver. But like, have you ever heard stories or like recollections, like people somewhat experience very similar, if not the same thing,
like near-death experience? Almost,
yes, but also I'll use the term characters. The characters they see and interact with are the same characters that very similar to like ayahuasca. Like, have you heard of ayahuasca?
Yeah.
And people, there's like ayahuasca temples in the US, but a lot of people, they'll go down to like Central and South America, and they'll have a shaman, and it'll be a group setting where they'll all consume it together. And it's interesting how they'll have obviously like unique experiences, but also there are similarities with that. I guess wanted to use the parallel or the analogy of like ayahuasca, but with DMT, people kind of see the same, and people can Google it. I don't want to like, I guess, say anything incorrectly, but there are people who separately, not in the same groups, different sides of the world, interact with eerily the same, if not the same, characters in their trip, for lack of a better term.
That makes me question so many things, because
yes, it does.
Because because DMT, to my understanding, is the same chemical that gets released in your brain when you die.
That's to my understanding. Yes, your brain technically naturally produces it, but only in moments of extreme, I don't want to say stress,
Adrenaline,
extreme, basically like near death or death.
Like you're about to get sideswiped or T-boned by a semi truck, and like you escape that narrowly, kind of thing. Yeah. And so my understanding, like the reason why people see the same figures, and again, not to get into like a religion based aspect of it, but what if those figures that they're seeing are, the spiritual world, God, all that kind of stuff, like going into the light and everything, like that's because that's to me, that I'm not saying that's the only logical explanation, but if you're seeing the same beings, then what else could it be? Unless you're seeing figures of people that you knew that passed away, and they don't look different to everyone, but it's just people that knew you at some point.
Yes. No, you're spot on. I've thought about that for so long, ever since I learned about all this, is like the whole going into the light thing. Is that really what's going on there? And it trips my mind, and I'm not trying to convince anyone. Like, I'm not even convinced on what I'm about to say here, but it does make you wonder how much about our belief in something outside of this, how much of that production of DMT has to do with that. It's way out of my realm of like expertise. So like, everything I say is like, I'm a stupid monkey talking about this stuff, basically. But like, it really makes you wonder, especially when people have eerily similar experiences when they're not even in the same room nor the same state or country, and they're consuming this drug, for lack of a better term, I suppose.
Right.
But it's also like where the whole like Clockwork Elves come from, and it's just, I tried to actually find a list real quick of it, and it's kind of interesting. I found there are some like books you can buy on Amazon that are like field guides to tripping on DMT.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like
step one.
Yeah, and that's the other thing people have wrestled with, is how much of it has to do with a preconceived idea of what you're going to potentially experience versus vanilla, unpersuaded thoughts. And I've read, and I know like Rogan's had people on talk about this too, where like there are situations where you have multiple individuals, different parts of the world, country, etc., that are all doing this, that don't have those preconceived notions and are still having those experiences, which is even more wild.
Right.
Yeah, because if it's something going in and then you experience it, it's the prophecy fulfilled, basically, right?
Right. But and that's the thing too, is my like back in those days, I've done acid, and I'll be honest, like the first time I did it twice. The first time was easygoing in a sense. I mean, it was for 18 hours, which I'm just gonna say this now, for anyone who ever decides to try to do it, don't like,
it was a different moment in time.
It was a different moment in time, but I know people would say like, yeah, like you have to at least try it once. No, don't. Just don't. The both times that I did it, especially the first time, I had an existential crisis because someone thought it would be funny to play Into the Void on my TV while it's my first time, and I'm over here freaking out like in a um over here freaking out, and the guy that's also on acid next to me is
The
like,
person that put that on was an extremely poor decision on their part. I'll just say that.
well, do you know who it was?
I'm pretty sure I know who it was.
It
So,
Charlotte.
yeah,
Yeah, Charlotte was the one who put it on
yeah, it was.
because her and Nee decided to come over, and which I mean I was fine with because we kind of needed babysitters
Yeah,
during that. Um, and so they came over. I was like, yeah, sure, come over. And I'm sitting next to Jamie, and he has his arm around me. He's shaking, but he's like, "Don't worry, man. We're gonna get through this together." I'm like, "Okay, man." And then she put that on, and I lost it. I was like, "No,
yeah,
we got to turn that off." And so
yep.
Jamie had to
Good
turn
vibes
it off.
only.
Yeah, I was like, so Jamie had to turn it off. And the second time I did it, it was a little bit more chill, but it was still kind of like we had another party, and we were all in the hot tub, and everyone is just doing their thing all on, like on whatever. And out of everyone there, I'm the only one that hears the guy on the top third floor yelling at us saying, "Hey, y'all better shut that down before I call the cops." And I'm like,
Yeah,
how am I the only one hearing this? Guys, get everything and get inside right now. Like we're done out here. So
yeah, yeah. And of course, you're like paranoid out the wazoo at that point, and your brain's getting in these weird loops and racing. And
but needless
whoo,
to say,
buddy.
don't do it. No,
Yeah,
don't ever do it.
yeah,
I would not. I would not recommend. But if you do it, make sure it's with people you can trust, that you 100% Waverly can trust.
yeah.
So
So I have a fun thing to kind of kick us off with here. Did you know? Actually, let me ask you this: you got any Wi-Fi routers in your apartment?
I don't have I have the Wi-Fi is in the closet in the other room, and then we have the EERO extender thing right here on my desk.
What if I told you that Wi-Fi router or any Wi-Fi connected devices could be tracking your movements within your home and potentially reporting on that to third-party companies?
Like, what do you mean tracking movement?
What I mean is Xfinity, one of the preeminent internet providers in the country, has flat out come out and said that one of the features that they now offer for their Wi-Fi package is to track motion detection inside of your home for no extra cost, because Wi-Fi signals can pick up on motion.
How does that help with anything Wi-Fi related?
It doesn't. That's the key. Now you have to question, why do we all have so many Wi-Fi enabled devices in our home?
I'm still super confused. I'm going to be 100% honest because like my phone, my laptop, and my iPad are the only three things that I can actually pick up and move around with me.
Yeah.
Everything else that's Wi-Fi enabled, like my desktop right here and my TV, all that's all Wi-Fi enabled, but it doesn't move anywhere.
Yeah, no, what this is saying is it's not the device. So look at the graphic on the screen here. It's
Right.
showing a woman walking in, let's say, a living room, right? And there is, I'll say it's a Nest thermostat, which is Wi-Fi enabled.
Right.
And then there's a Wi-Fi router, which it's Wi-Fi enabled. And because of that connection between the Wi-Fi router and another device that is hooked up to Wi-Fi, they're able to pick up on when there is motion detection in the room or the house. And so they're using it to say, use this as like a home security method, basically. But then you have to start asking the question, first of all, they're able to do this. They're able to track movement or motion in a home based on Wi-Fi signals bouncing around from room to room.
Right.
So now imagine if you have 10 to 15 Wi-Fi enabled devices, which is not crazy to think about. Even if you just have two people in a home, you have at least one Wi-Fi router, minimum two phones, Maybe you have a Chromecast, a Roku, something on the TV, or maybe you natively have a smart TV that's hooked up to Wi-Fi. I know some people have desktops. I'll assume that's hardwired in. Maybe you have a Wi-Fi router for that. Maybe you have a laptop. Maybe you have other smart devices as well. Like I have some Google Homes. You can play some music through Wi-Fi. They're able to track movement using Wi-Fi signals. And they're blatantly saying it now.
Yeah.
And before I kind of let you speak for a second, Hacker News is also talking about this because Comcast, also known as Xfinity, is able to share this information with third-party companies. Why is that?
That is a good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
It could be because, so this is my theory, and it's not even really a theory because I barely even thought about it. So it's just my thoughts. You know how like when DoorDash became a big thing and, you know, next thing you know, you can start getting your groceries delivered to your house. And now Amazon has like the drones that fly your packages. And then COVID happened and everyone was stuck inside for a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Do you think this is part of that reasoning? Because it's just a way for them to try to figure out how to keep people at home. And so there's just all these different things.
No, I mean, yes and no. I think this is a very subtle way of having a surveillance state without having a surveillance state. And I don't even think it's not even the government that's tracking this. I think this is far beyond like the government wanting to track this. Yeah, I'm sure the NSA probably gets their hands on this data at some point in time down the road. I think what this really is our telecom companies, in this case, Xfinity, AT&T, Verizon, Spectrum, etc., realizing that they have access to be able to track motion within private homes and be able to leverage that data, whether it be selling it to their third-party partners for advertising purposes. Because if they know when you're home, even if you're not using your phone or a TV, they're eventually going to be able to serve you ads, be able to do something on the thermostat. These like weird things that sound very dystopian, but are very much a reality. Other things to think about here, and I kind of went through a loop with this recently, or I say recently, within the last 2 or 3 years. Think about, you know what a Roomba is? Like an iRobot vacuum.
Right.
Those vacuums are mapping out your house, right? I believe I forget if it's Roomba or iRobot. It might be iRobot. One of them is owned by Amazon. It's an Amazon company, right? So as it vacuums your home, it knows literally the layout of your home. Maybe you have a Ring camera for your doorbell. That is also a product of Amazon. Maybe you have an Alexa. Maybe you have 2 or 3 Alexas. Those are also mapping out your home. So now Amazon knows the entire footprint and where you are in your home, regardless of if you want them to know or not.
Amazon's going to come knocking one of these days.
Well, that's the thing. It's not even just Amazon. Think about Google. Google also has all these similar devices. They have the Nest thermostat. They have the Google Homes. They have I forget what they call it, but they have the Google Doorbell, very similar to Ring. Then you have like Xfinity and Verizon. They have the Wi-Fi routers. They have smart enabled devices all throughout the home. It's only going to get more intense from here in terms of the subtle amount of data. It's almost like like everyone's talking about, the greatest passive way to make money, the passive income, the passive job, right? This is passive data collection for these giant corporations. But so much so that like they know when you're walking around, even if you don't have a single device on you.
That's why I'm just like, when I see people, like I see some people that have just every piece of technology ever that's all Wi-Fi enabled in their home. I'm like, they're listening and hearing and seeing everything you're doing. Like, it's crazy to me.
And like, I get worried sometimes because, don't get me wrong, 5G, a lot of people can shout from the rooftops that like 5G is like some government psyop. I don't know.
Well, we
I'm
got
not about
6G now.
it's common. I'm waiting on 10G before I take it seriously.
Right.
But there are studies showing that, like, if you keep your phone or like something that's like Wi-Fi enabled next to your head while you sleep at night, like it's not the best for you. You don't get the best REM sleep. You don't have the best, like, because there's like a legitimate signal in the air still, like
Yeah.
potentially passing through your body in a sense. So I do wonder sometimes, because I work from home. I sit actually like about a foot that direction. I have a 5G Wi-Fi router literally right there. And I wonder, there's some days, I don't know, I get tired. Although I do stare at a screen a lot when I work. I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt there. But I do wonder, am I just getting like Wi-Fi blasted all day just because I sit right next to the Wi-Fi router?
I mean,
I don't know.
probably. I mean, when
Yeah.
because like I kind of bounce back and forth. So it's like I have my desk, like I actually have my laptop sitting right here. It's on like a little elevated stand.
Yeah.
And it's just also kind of how my setup would be, like, moving forward, with the job and all that kind of stuff and everything. But like I'm the same way, because it's like I may not have the Wi-Fi, all that stuff maybe in the bedroom, but I have the Wi-Fi extender right here in this room, because
Yeah.
this is where a lot of my time is spent. But if I'm not in here, then I'm in there on, like, sitting on the couch, working at the coffee table kind of thing, or just working at the table in there. But yeah, no, I'm the same way. I mean, even when I sleep at night with my phone, I mean, it stays on my end table, but that's just because it's my alarm. Okay, let me ask you this question. Have you ever seen, I have not seen one in stores in such a long time, and I could just not have seen them, alarm clocks.
I have not, but I'll preface that by saying I haven't been looking for them.
Right.
I'm sure you could still find them like on e-commerce, like Amazon. I'm sure you could still find them. But you're right. That's a good point. I think because cell phones are so prominently used as the modern alarm clock, it probably doesn't make sense for like a Walmart or a Target to have them in stock. Or if they do, it's a very minimal amount, and they're definitely not front and center. Like you got to go down an aisle specifically looking for like 2 or 3 models. That's a good point, though. I hadn't really noticed that.
Because I mean, they have some on Amazon, but they're not like your traditional alarm clocks. Like, they're made more for show now than anything.
Oh, it's more just like to decorate a nightstand sort of a
Yeah,
thing.
like they have a wooden digital alarm clock. They have digital projection alarm clock with weather station. They have Amazon Basic small digital oval alarm clock. Another wooden one. Yeah, like it's just it's not like the ones that you used to get that would have the radio on them, and
Yeah.
everything. Like they like I'm not seeing a whole bunch of those anymore.
Man, I sometimes feel like an old man because I think I'm the only. Actually, let me ask you: do you listen to the radio when you drive, or are you like I put on Spotify, or like I don't, but do you put on like Spotify, Apple, something like that instead?
I usually have just Apple Music on, but it's either that or a podcast.
I still love to listen to the radio, like up until maybe about a year and a half ago, because I used to commute downtown like every
Right,
day. And so I'd be on the road for 30, 45, 50 minutes.
right.
And like I would get to know in the Austin area, like I knew who all the DJs were on the local stations that didn't have some nationally syndicated like morning show host. It's sad to see, because some of the stations since then have started to get more like, what I mean by like a nationally syndicated like morning talk
Mhm.
show. And it's sad because I think, and it totally makes sense, local radio is dying. Radio in general is not a profitable business anymore.
I don't think they're dying. I just think a lot of them are going to podcasting now.
Well, I guess when I say dying, I mean just like radio stations in general.
Yeah, like you don't see, like, the, I don't know, 89 or 87.7 and all those. Like, there's some specific ones that were up here that I do recall and everything, but a lot of them are just like they're going from just like the only time you ever have radio now is if you have like the local channels, and
That's what I mean. Is like
they
the
do
legitimate local.
and they do like football games on Friday nights, like things like that, where they broadcast them and stuff. But for the most part, I think a lot, because like I watch like the Pat McAfee show and all those, and
Yeah.
it's like that's like another version of the radio for me. It's like,
It's another version of the radio, but I guess when I refer to radio, I mean like in your case, it's literally a radio station broadcasting from Dallas, Fort Worth, like
right,
wherever that tower is. It's in Plano, it's in Granbury. I don't know where it's at, but it's like broadcasting with people in
right.
a booth that are from not they live in DFW, and they're talking about DFW things. It's not like, good example. Do you know who Bobby Bones is?
Bobby Bones. That sounds so familiar.
Nowadays he has a nationally syndicated morning talk show on radio, typically on country stations. He's also been on like Dancing with the Stars and some other things like that other celebrities do. But he started off as like a local Austin radio station DJ, just for like one station locally. And then like the show blew up. They moved him up to Nashville and he's like nationally syndicated now. But it's like the dying art of local radio. Because like when you listen to it, it's like being part of the community, you know? If you're listening to someone that's like broadcasting to LA or some city that's not your own, why should you care? Like you can just put on a podcast just like other people do. It's like, it's no different than that. Plus you probably connect more with the podcast artist, podcast host, because there's more content and it's less drive timey in a sense. But.
Now there are like, I watched this thing, like this is kind of like my guilty pleasure now on TikTok, and I hate it. Aside from like the AI Sasquatch stuff, which I see those on Facebook now. Like that's like one of my favorite things now. Like I don't know why.
Yeah.
But it's called Brooke and Jubal in the Morning.
I've not heard of that.
Okay, so it's mostly on TikTok, but they have this there's actually a couple different versions of this type of show, but I like this one though because they do something called the second date update.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Go ahead and explain it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so they essentially, when two people go on a date and one person ghosts the other, the person that gets ghosted can email the radio station and say, hey, I was on a date with this person. This happened. They ghosted me. Here's my number. Can I be on your show or something like that? And they'll call you and they'll get the whole story from you. And they'll say, okay, well, we're going to try to call this person then. We'll like you can listen in on the phone call. We'll call this person. We'll talk to him for a bit. And they try to find out why they got ghosted. So then they get the person on the phone. They talk to him. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's just, it is what it is. But the person that ends up telling them why they ghosted them, they're actually telling it to the other person because they're on the other line listening.
Yeah.
And I was, it's so funny to me. And some of them are cringe too, man. Like they're bad. But it's just, I enjoy watching them. Like, that's just kind of like I watch like one or two a day.
Yeah.
Ooh, excuse me.
Well, I think a good segue, if you're down, before Applebee sent us on this trip down to Cancun for their Applebee/IHOP combination restaurant, which was an amazing trip, just once in a lifetime. Can't wait to live stream there for the audience listening. I had this topic I wanted to bring up if we had done a Sunday night episode. And it's that I think the route to really having a kind of a dope life is buying a small town newspaper and running it. And I know that sounds crazy, right? Like I know in Denton, you have the Denton Record Chronicle. It's a good newspaper. They got a kind of a terrible paywall. I hate it nowadays.
They don't even do the physical paper anymore.
Yeah.
It's all digital.
It's slowly dying. It's very slowly dying.
I network with a guy who works there and he talks about how like, oh, it's been doing good and all this and that. And I'm like,
the moment they sold their downtown square location, that was nail in the coffin right there.
I'll be honest with you. Ever since you left Denton, like it's not what it used to be, man.
Dude, I tell myself that all the time and I feel terrible about it because like I feel like when you moved there, when I was living there, I feel like it was a peak moment. I know Denton goes through its like it goes through eras. There's eras of like prosperity and there's eras of like nothing's going on.
When we used to just go around the square and just hang out and do stuff, like that was it. And it just, so a lot of it too is like Mayor Hudspeth, like apparently this is his last term for city mayor and apparently he's running for county commissioner after this.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that have been changing, but a lot of businesses have shut down on the square. I don't want to say a lot of businesses shut down on the square, but like certain businesses have shut down that no one ever thought that would.
Yeah.
So Andy's bar shut down, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think Andy's bar shut down because I never see it open anymore.
R.I.P. Did Pascal's close too on the top floor?
I think Pascal's closed also.
Dang, man.
There's They closed down a couple other stores, but they put other stuff there in place of it. It's like now they have like a graffiti pasta and all like they got some different places there now.
Like a pasta restaurant?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I've never had it. It's got mixed reviews.
Yeah.
There was even a couple other places that shut down as well, but LSA is still there. Not as good as what it used to be. They stopped doing the coleslaw,
Yeah. I remember you
like
telling
which
me that.
yeah. Cartwright's is still there. Jupiter House is still there. West Oak Coffee Bar is still there. Um, but yeah, it's just it
Is
doesn't have.
Hooligan still there?
I
It
think
was right
Hooligan
next to
shut down
Jupiter?
too.
Okay.
Well, they might have reopened. They were shut down at one point. I thought they reopened, but I never see anyone there either.
Yeah.
So I think they shut down also.
Is Loophole? It was kind of by
Yes.
LSA.
Yeah, Loophole's still open.
Okay.
They got new management too, I think. So
Okay.
they're under new management, or they have been for a while.
My favorite thing, I don't know if it's still there, but do you remember it started off as Sweetwater, and they shut down for a little bit, and then they reopened as Agua Dulce,
Well,
which for those who aren't bilingual, it literally is still Sweetwater.
so they shut down, but then it got reopened as Crazy Eight's Bar, at which point I worked there and
Oh, okay.
didn't make it. So I actually made it to the square, but
Okay.
didn't make any money because
Without knowing any context, if I just hear the name Crazy Eights, it sounds like a terrible dive bar.
it
But like,
was.
okay.
So the thing is,
What
though,
was that
is
other bar that was next to? Was it Dusty's?
Dusty's, yeah, and
Dusty's.
that shut.
God,
Did
Dusty's
that
was a
shut down too?
shithole, but I
Yeah,
love
dude,
going
it
there.
was.
I love going there. It's
Yeah.
great.
No, I think Dusty's might have still been open. I don't remember, but
I think Dusty's been there for so long. They may have owned the building.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the people that opened, so the people that opened up Crazy Eights, they owned a bar. I think it was the same type of bar in Mineral Wells,
Okay.
and so they wanted to open one up in Denton because Denton's big into the bar scene, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
College town.
Yeah. So they opened it up, and the people that owned it were going to be, you know, they were going to have help, getting everything done. So they brought in people for like a manager from the one in Mineral Wells. They brought in, which this is how I got into the networking group that I got to, because the main manager that was there, she's the one that hired me. Well, the next thing you know, and I'll get off this here in just a second.
No, you're good. Spill the
the
beans on Crazy Eights.
Yeah, dude. Needless to say, like, it was so dead that I would I knew I was already gonna be going into real estate, so I was like, I just want to work 2 days a week. Just
Why
to
do
try
you
to
think
make
it was dead?
Curse of Sweetwater.
Okay.
The Curse of Sweetwater.
Yes,
That's
it
what
already had a bad perception, so people just didn't even bother
Yeah.
walking over there.
And they didn't do enough marketing, I don't think, either. So the owners, they didn't really go to a lot of the chamber stuff. They were a part of the chamber, but they didn't go to a lot of
Oh,
chamber stuff. They didn't do it.
yeah.
They weren't involved in the community stuff. So they
That's
didn't
the
get.
thing. Denton's a big, for those of you who don't know, like Denton's a community at the end of the day. Like it legit, it's one of the
Yeah.
few places I've lived where it's like, it's a community for better
But
or worse.
if you're not on the square and you're
Yeah.
like off the square, you have to do that much more advertising just for people to notice you.
Yep.
And then there became this like unspoken disagreement between the GM and the owners, where the GM wanted to be a silent investor so she could actually have a say in stuff. Well, they didn't want that to happen. And then even the owners would be up there drinking and all this other kind of stuff. And it was like those bars that you see on Bar Rescue.
I was just about to say, I'm like, when's John Taffer gonna walk in?
Dude, I would have been like, thank you, God.
That would have been hilarious because Abby and I recently, I don't know, a couple months back, we went through kind of the binge of like, I had watched Bar Rescue back in its like
Right.
heyday. It still
Right.
definitely is producing episodes, but I had shown her a couple and she got hooked on like the format of it's, in a lack of a better term, it's like trash television, right? But
Yeah.
you love to watch cringeworthy stuff like that.
Right.
And so we kind of binged through it a couple times. I didn't realize, and I didn't realize it before I started saying this. Remember the Drunken Donkey?
Yeah, he went there.
Yeah, he did. I did not know that.
Yeah.
We came across that episode and I was like, before they said where it was, I was like, I've been in there. I was like, I know where this is.
So yeah, so needless to say, I was like, I'm just gonna work like 2 days a week, maybe 3. I'm trying to get my real estate career going, so like I'm not gonna work a lot. And I immediately got hired on as bartender. They didn't even need to have servers. Like, I'll be honest with you, by the time they opened, there weren't all those people that got hired were not
Yeah.
there. Like they
Oh,
decided not
wow.
they decided to not do it. Like there was just no way they were going to do this because there was
Isn't
just
that
no.
wild that there's a good number of people out there that do that? Like they'll get a job and just never show up.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm like,
And
what? How do you live?
and then they had like all the food and everything. So it's like it became like it went from I would get like one like there were a couple times where I had like a couple tables at once,
Yeah.
but it didn't stick.
What
I
was the
would
food? Was it like American? Like
It was like
burgers and
your
stuff?
tradition yeah, it was
Like
like your
fried
traditional
food?
bar yeah, fried foods. They even
Okay.
had like sandwiches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um and um and it just became a I never had business. I didn't have it. Nobody came in. Like I was even trying to gonna be using that as like a hey, I'm about to get my real estate license, this and this and all this, trying to build that rapport with new people. And needless to say, it's so funny. The last two bar slash restaurants that I worked at, from the moment I left both of them, both closed down within like 2 months, 3 months. Both
You
of
want
them.
you want to have fun real quick?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read through. I went to Crazy Eights on Yelp. Now, for context, it is permanently closed, so they're not open anymore. I sorted it by least rated. I'm gonna read through some of these reviews right quick and just see what your gut reaction is on some of these.
Hold on, I'm gonna pull them up too real quick. I
Yeah,
want to see.
yeah. If you just scroll down on the page, once you get down to the ratings, it has a 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, about
Yes.
mid tier, which is honestly, it's about accurate for like the kind of place this probably would have been. There's 10 reviews. There's only 10 reviews. And I sorted it by lowest rated first. So let's see. Richard B. from Denton, Texas, on August 27th, 2022. He says, not a good experience on August 27th around 12:30 p.m. Homeboy was going to a bar at 12:30 p.m.
I mean, we did too.
Hey, man, if I would,
we went to LSA though, different.
yeah, a little different, a legitimate restaurant. He says there was a table of 4 on the patio and about 6 people at the bar. However, it took over 30 minutes for the kitchen to prepare a hamburger and a Frito chili pie. The service was inattentive. When the food finally came, we had to ask for silverware and had to get up to find condiments. A group that came in after us left because of slow service. At one point, all of the employees working the dining room and bar area were outside smoking. Riley's nodding his head. We also to locate our waiter to bring the tab, and then we had to locate him again to pay it. Although the employees were friendly, all of their attention was given to a group at the bar whom they apparently knew. I want to support local businesses and strive to do that whenever I can. However, without getting attentive service, I just won't go back.
Now, this was after I quit. I quit like beginning of August, like something like that.
Beginning of August.
And that was August 27th, 2022. So I quit like end of July, beginning of August.
Dang, there are no reviews prior to that time point. I was trying to find a review that maybe you were still working there. Let's see here. August 16th, 2022 from Jessica H. Technically, her Yelp profile says she's from Florida. 2 out of 5 stars. Says, there were 4 of us that went here for a Saturday night college football. Interesting. Came out of town to see the North Texas Mean Green. Must have been Florida Atlantic, maybe. We were ready to order drinks and great food. First mistake was when we stayed after finding out they were out of wings. A sports bar without wings? Then tried to order the Frito pie. Apparently the Frito pie is popular. Then they were out of Fritos, heaven forbid. How do you have Frito pie without Fritos? You don't. That's why they probably didn't serve it to you. Ended up staying and ordering food. Ordered number 1, the pork nachos, which was terrible. Ordered number 2, a chicken sandwich, which came out with 2 tenders on it with burnt fries. Ordered number 3, pork tacos, which barely had any pork on them and was very dry. It came with baked beans that look like they've been sitting out for days. And then in parentheses, waiter even said his dog poops the same color of beans. What the hell? Order number 4, the Crazy 8 burger. The only thing that wasn't too terrible, but came with burnt fries. Also, I don't know how you have burnt fries. Use a fryer. I don't think
don't change the oil.
That makes sense.
They didn't really change the oil. I will say that they did not
Yeah,
change that oil.
costs money.
Yeah.
Uh, lastly, they say our server was great. Riley, he was awesome, and it wasn't his. They don't say Riley. I just made that up.
I know.
Our server was great, and it wasn't his fault. Wasn't his fault what the kitchen does, but I do feel that it is the owner's fault to allow this to happen in their place of business. This could be a really great spot if there was some kind of effort in the kitchen. It's sad to spend $100 on food and drinks and it be so terrible. So terrible that we still ended up ordering Domino's when we left. And they were able to provide wings and pizza for less money and it be consistent. I don't normally do reviews unless they're good, but I felt this was necessary to address. RIP. So,
I'm trying to see.
I feel like those two reviews right there summate what happened to good old Crazy Eights Sports Bar and Grill. Yelpers report that this location is closed, unfortunately. You could have found it at 115 South Elm Street, Denton, Texas, 76201.
Yeah. I'm trying to honestly see if there's anything in here about me, but I don't think there was.
I didn't. Yeah, all the dates on the reviews, they were after the time you told me. If you said you worked there prior to August, kind of. Yeah, they're all August and post, kind of in the downfall of the business.
Yeah. No, and that's just funny to me because it's just like, and I'll be honest, like some of the food honestly wasn't bad. Like when it's done right, it's done right. Like it really was. It honestly was. But they
didn't do it right more often than not.
It would like they would even have like meetings trying to talk about what they could do better, and I was like, this is what you could do better, like 100%. And it didn't do it. It did not do it. And so yeah, after I left, they shut down like 3 months later. Something like that. Yeah, 3 or 4 months later. And the same thing happened with the Cajun restaurant I worked at when I left from there. Because it's funny though, because when I worked at Crazy Eights, I told everyone, I was like, that place is going to be shut down in like 3 months anyways. And then it got shut down, and I was like, oh my god. And then the other place, it was shut down like 4 months later because the food was too expensive, and it was okay, but it's not the best Cajun food I've ever had. It was too gourmet for that type of restaurant and for Denton. Like if you want Cajun food, you need it to be like quick Cajun food, not something that's going to take 45 minutes to get. So, that Crazy Eights, man.
Well, if you're interested, I have an update on the state of Texas, kind of our what's going on in the state of Texas for this week. Got some news for you. First big thing on the agenda in the state of Texas, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed into law making gold and silver legal tender in day-to-day financial transactions. There's been a number of businesses coming out since this law has been signed saying that they will accept gold bars as currency in their respective businesses. A lot of barbecue restaurants have come out and said this. So it's kind of interesting to see that. Also, breaking news, as of June 27th, Texas has banned China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea from buying land in the state of Texas. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, hold on a minute. Do these countries owe land in the state of Texas?
They do.
Let's look at how much land the country of China not only owns in Texas, but the entire United States of America. If we look at this here, actually, let me minimize this so our heads aren't in the way here. You can see in Texas alone, you see the two forts there. You have Fort Cavazos, which is the artist formerly known as Fort Hood, which is, I believe, the biggest fort we got in the United States of America, if not easily a top 2 or 3. And you have Camp Bullis, a little bit down south of that. But look at how much land is owned in the state of Texas just by the Chinese alone. And then when you zoom out a little bit, look at the rest of our country here. Look at the East Coast. Look at North Carolina. Look at Virginia. That's a lot of land. That's a lot of land. And then you look west. Look at California.
That doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't, but it's a lot of land to think about.
That is a lot of land.
That's a lot of land.
I mean, when you look in the retrospect of the entire country, it's not so much, but I feel like that's more than what should be.
But do you
And
notice
that's
how the land is right here? I'll enlarge this a little bit. Look at how close to the military bases all of this land is.
that's concerning.
Yeah, quite literally every plot of land is right next to a military base. I think the only two that I see that are not immediately next to a military base
Fort
is
Moore.
Fort Moore, Wright-Patterson is got two plots kind of next to there, but not directly next to it.
Right, Patterson.
And then Ohio.
Right, Patterson. Okay, yeah. And then I was looking at the Maine Army National Guard.
Yeah, Maine Army National Guard as well. They got a good chunk of land in Maine, but definitely not right up next to it. But you look at some of these others like Fort Leonard Wood, Whiteman Air Force Base, Dugway, Hill Air. They're like right next to them.
Do you think that because it says farmland, so it's like obviously for a purpose of manufacturing?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Farmland. Like it's the same way someone with a large plot of land who lives in suburbia gets an ag exemption because they have bumblebees in their backyard.
Not you know what I mean? But the thing is, though, is this is only showing Chinese-owned farmland. What about Russia? Like when you put that plus Russia plus all these others, like
that's a good question, actually. Let's see here. Here's a good map. I'll share my screen here momentarily. Boom. The Great Farmvasion of America, according to the American Farm Bureau Federation. The color red is Iran. Blue is Cuba. Yellow is China. Green is Russia. Purple, Venezuela. Didn't expect Venezuela to pop up on here, but I guess they own some land up here in Montana.
And down in Florida. Yeah.
Yo, why does Venezuela own this land? Hold up a second. What's Venezuela doing? Do we need to be concerned about Venezuela?
No. I'll be honest, that's not as bad as I thought. I thought that was going to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
I really did.
Why does Iran own a little chunk of land in the far west Texas?
Not only that, but if you look at Central Texas, they own that chunk there. And then if you look up above that,
Hold up. That's Williamson and Travis County. The southern one, that's the county that Austin sits in. That northern one, that's where I'm at currently. I'm like, hold up. What does Iran own in Williamson County?
I mean, I think that because if you look at the striped one right above that,
yeah,
and that's owned by China and
that's Denton County right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're in a hotbed right now, buddy.
I'm not scared.
Nah, you shouldn't be. Just because they own the land doesn't mean they're really doing anything with it.
Yeah.
For all we know, there's maybe like a fracking site on one of these that maybe they're pumping oil out of or something.
Could be. I mean, that could be a lot of why the other ones are, owned by the people that they're owned by too.
Yeah.
But and also too, I mean, China owns a lot over on that East Coast, man.
They do. They really do.
So.
Have you heard about this Tinder dating effect going on in the NBA?
I have not.
Came across this post this last week from Trung Fan. Has a lot of good bangers on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. He says, just read about how the Tinder dating effect has changed the NBA. Home teams in the 1980s won about 68% of their games. However, in the 2010s and later, it's closer to 57%. Which means away teams are winning more often. One reason, instead of going to nightclubs, away teams are using Instagram and dating apps to hook up while on the road. So they aren't out drinking and are able to get a full night's sleep. This coincides with NBA teams chartering flights instead of flying commercial, and all-around health improvement and awareness, diet, sleep, training. ESPN had an article back in 2017 that seemed to be somewhat relevant talking about this, saying that indeed various apps have done for sex in the NBA what Amazon has done for books. One no longer needs to leave home to find a party. The party now comes to you. And lifestyle judgments aside, the NBA road life is simply more efficient and less taxing when there aren't open hours spent trolling clubs. Quote, it's absolutely true that you get at least 2 hours more sleep getting late on the road today versus 15 years ago, says one former all-star, who adds that players actually prefer Instagram to Tinder when away from home. Just a fun little nugget of
I can see why.
Oh, yeah. It makes total sense. If you're not spending your whole late night hours, early morning hours, even potentially, in a nightclub, buying bottle service for, someone to bring home to the hotel room, when you just open your phone and there's like a wait list.
There is a wait list. I guess that's what you want to call it.
It's something. And then he goes on to follow it up with the obligatory J.R. Smith 2013 Instagram DM screenshot. Some unsuspecting person, probably a female origin, said, I'm going to your game tonight. He says, dope. She goes, happy face emoji. He goes, oh, really? She goes, oh, really what? And he goes, you're trying to get the pipe? Question mark.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
That's funny.
So that's the thing. Man, I can deep dive into my likes a little bit more if you want, or you got anything on your side at all?
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have a lot.
Have you seen the I think it's the Indonesian boat racers? The aura that they bring. This video has been going kind of viral on TikTok and the social medias. So this is one perspective. Let me just play this for you real quick, and then there's definitely other boat racers doing similar things. Look at this.
Okay.
So he's not the only one. There are others. Here's an actual TikTok. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm young, black and rich. She trying to sell me lies, bitch. I ain't buying shit. If we ain't talking money, then I'ma plead the fifth. I put ice in my mouth. Yeah, I'm high.
This is a boat race. I looked it up earlier today. It's been going on for over 100 years. And this is like just part of the culture. So it's a thing. Don't ask me for any more information outside of what I just told you, because I don't have it. But it's been going hella viral on TikTok this past week, to say the least. So boat racing is the new hot thing in Indonesia.
I guess.
I've also been kind of falling in love with some of these meme accounts I find on X. One of my favorites, his name is Chase Passive Income. Yes, everything about this account is 100% a joke. But he posts stuff like this saying, was having lunch with a billionaire. He tipped our waitress 500%. Wow. I asked why he did it. He said that that tip that he just gave her puts her over the annual income limit for the rent-controlled apartment she lives in. Now the landlord can kick her out and raise the rent by thousands of dollars for the next tenant. Guess who owns the rent-controlled apartment she lives in? Billionaires operate on a different level.
That's crazy.
It is. But this is like 100% just like a meme account that just posts all sorts of debauchery. Like, you're not broke. You just haven't installed a weed vending machine in a high school bathroom yet. Struggling for cash? Just buy a $700,000 home. You can always rent it out for $5,000 a month to bring in some extra income, and the home will double in value over the next few years. Passive income is too easy.
But who's going to rent a house for $5,000 unless you live in an area where someone just wants to pay $5,000?
You're asking too many questions, sir.
I guess so. Because, well, that's the thing. Like, let's just kind of touch on that for a second. Because here it's like, okay, you buy a $350,000 house if you can find one in Denton for $350,000, and then you can rent it out for maybe $2,400 a month, and that'll pay the mortgage. Well, no, I don't even say $2,400 a month. To actually pay the mortgage now, depending on your rate, you're looking at probably like $2,800 a month.
Yeah,
so
and you probably still want to turn at least a little profit off of that too.
And so it's like, who's going to pay $3,000 a month to rent a house in this area when that person themselves could probably go get a mortgage for a new build and pay even less,
Exactly.
And that's kind of my logic behind it when people want to pay higher rents and they're like, I can't afford a house. I'm like, you have a better chance of getting denied for that rental than you do actually getting denied for the house if you went to a new build.
Yeah.
With a realtor like me.
Definitely. Yeah,
So,
no, you're spot on. It's a crazy phenomena we've been experiencing over this last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years at this point.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy.
So yeah. Also, I just noticed. Did you put this note on here? Let them burn.
Oh yeah, I put that on there just to see if you would notice.
I did. I just noticed it. So one thing I was going to talk about, it just has to do with economical stuff, but the shares hit record high. Oil plummets with market sentiment, buoyed by Iran-Israel truce, and this was obviously from last week.
Yeah.
Apparently, so here's the thing. Apparently, they ceased fire, but then I heard that they didn't.
Yeah, it was kind of a gray area. There was like a timeline to have the ceasefire, and then they
took advantage of
They kind of took advantage of that a little bit. Yeah.
Well, needless to say, an index of global shares hit record high on Tuesday, with oil prices plummeting further as market sentiment was lifted by the easing of Middle East tensions after a shaky ceasefire between Israel and Iran began to take hold. President Donald Trump had announced on Monday that Israel and Iran had reached a ceasefire to end their 12-day-old war. Both sides accused each other of violating the truce on Tuesday, sparking an extraordinary outburst from Trump. Again, nothing else too crazy, just a bunch of numbers, but S&P's finished at 500.
It has been crazy. Like, it is higher than it's ever been, but it's like, for how long? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
So yeah, there's that. The other thing, so I kind of put this on here because I came across a post and I was like, I'll just put this in here. I was like, does Canada have a housing crisis? And I'm here to tell you they don't.
Oh, they don't? Oh, well, hey, are you going to live that far north?
I'm not saying I would live all the way up here, but it's like, look how light this is right here. Look how light this is right here. Look how there's nobody here, nobody here. And there could be, national parks, things like that, respectfully, in some of these areas.
There's literally nobody there. It's the tundra.
That's what I'm saying, though. They could, it still gets icy and snowy here, too. But it's like they could establish more in some of these other areas, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Some of these other little lighter areas right here, they could definitely establish more. But most of the population is coastal, or not coastal, but like borderline.
Have you ever seen that map that shows it's like 90 or 80% of all of Canada's population is below, I think it's like the 52nd parallel or something.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my goodness, hang on. Yeah, if just Google real quick, type Canada population map line. Just type in those words. It's kind of baffling to think about. The vast majority of Canada's population is like below a parallel line, which is barely on the other side of the border.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reality. Like, it's crazy to think about that way.
Like, how?
But that's where like Toronto is, Ontario, like, because like, remember, like when you get to like Western Canada, not counting Vancouver, it's like cowboy country. Like that is their Wild West. That's like cowboy fracking, like oil country. It's the same way we think of Odessa, but like throw ice and snow on top of it.
Well, why don't they go mine oil out there then?
They do.
Why do we have an oil issue? Like, why do they make this whole ordeal about oil and raising price? I'm asking too many questions.
You're asking too many questions, sir.
Asking too many questions.
You're asking way too many questions. You might be assassinated. I don't know. Right. You're on a list now. You can't fly anymore.
I've been on a list. Let's be honest. Yeah. The only other thing I want to touch on, then we can kind of just go through whatever else.
Yeah.
So remember about a week ago, we talked about Karmelo Anthony and
the video? What's the Karmelo? The da-na-na, da-na-na.
So the video that emerged, which this article came out July 1st.
We have a video?
They didn't actually show the stabbing happening.
I know Frisco IC has one, right? But they're not willing to disclose it until the court case.
They did, though. They gave it to this news station. And they didn't show the video, but they put a couple things on here. It says the video shows no obvious altercation prior to stabbing.
Yo, that is, dare I say, damning.
If
that's
video,
true.
if that's true, he's going to prison for first-degree murder. Because they've already indicted him. They indicted him last week.
Ruh-roh.
So
that's bad.
That's bad. So,
oh my goodness, I want to find this video.
Now that I think about it, my problems are not so bad right now.
I mean, different degree. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, it says news station has seen a new video showing Karmelo Anthony fatally stabbing, recorded from the press box across the field from where the attack occurred. Karmelo Anthony was wearing a gray hoodie, and there was no obvious physical altercation leading up to the stabbing. Video may tell prosecutors something that News Nation did not see, but what was apparent is that things went quickly from calm to chaotic. Neither side would comment to News Nation on the video, given that it is evidence. So it says, as of last week, Anthony was indicted and charged with first-degree murder. So,
interesting. I'm so determined to find this video. News Nation. Okay, there's an ad. Is there a video on the other side of this ad? I think you might be. Oh, you're probably watching the same video that's going to play right behind my ad.
Yeah, and it doesn't show anything about the altercation or anything like that.
Yeah, I get it. They can't really just like throw that out there on the internet,
right?
Under an umbrella like a corporate logo,
right? So
yeah, it's the same video you got. Dang it!
Yeah. Man. So all we know is though, until we actually see it during the court case, which they probably will show it at some point.
There'll probably be illustrations. I bet you we see illustrations.
I bet, yeah, probably so. But if it shows no obvious, if it actually does show that, you lost the court case right there. Unless they just somehow vote him not guilty.
Yeah.
Which I'm not pulling for either side. I'm not saying, oh, he's guilty. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it could be a bad day for him because that court case is going to go on probably for a couple weeks at least, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So,
well, with that, I think this Tuesday night special brought to you by our friends over at Applebee's Eating Good in the neighborhood. Hit them up. Tell them Riley and JK from the Unscripted Company podcast on the Tuesday night special told you to come out, and they will hook you up with some half price appetizers on Unscripted Company. Don't let them tell you otherwise. And with that, Riley, I'm going to leave you with the last words. They can be words of wisdom. They can be words of forewarning. They can be apocalyptic. They can be whatever you want them to be. I'll let you have the last words.
Always treat everyone with kindness because you never know when your last moments are going to be. Let's see. What would your opinion be of leaving reality? Like, what do you think that reality looks like? Let us know in the comments. We definitely want that to be down there just so we can have that interaction with people. And yeah, I really got nothing else. I mean, at the end of the day, Tuesday night special, it's very different, but we'll be back on our regular scheduled programming next Sunday night.
We'll see you then.
We'll see you then.